Mornings are arguably the busiest time of the day, but that doesn't mean you don't deserve something delicious and fresh in under 2 minutes.
Oh, the countertop is cold on my belly.
Meal prep breakfast bowls. I'm talking potatoes, vegetables, homemade sausage. Only if you want to though. You can also just use store-bought sausage. There is nothing wrong with that. We're doing all of our prep today. That way every morning this week, all you have to do is just crack in 2 fresh eggs, cook it in under 2 minutes, and have a delicious breakfast bowl that tastes like you just spent an hour making it, because you deserve a delicious breakfast. Now we're starting off with our sausage, which, like I said before, you do not have to make from scratch. Like whatever is easier for you, and it may even be cheaper for you depending on what you have and don't already have. I just want you to have the option to. So if you're following, it starts with 2 pounds of 80/20 ground pork. If I can get it out of the bag. Aw, I should have just opened it up more. I will not make this mistake a second time. I also will now notice that there was a little pull tab and I didn't have to cut them. Well, now into that, we're gonna wanna add about 7 or 8 roughly chopped sage leaves. And if you don't have access to fresh sage, that's no worries. You can totally use dry sage. I will have all the measurements for that down below. But if you are cutting up fresh sage, then just make sure that you are giving it a nice fine chop. You don't want giant pieces of sage in your sausage, unless you're one of those people that really like sage. But I'd be willing to bet it would be a little too much. So just chop it real fine. Then we can just scoop that up and add it to our bowl. And now we're also gonna wanna roughly chop about a tablespoon of fresh thyme. Again, if you don't have access to fresh thyme, then no worries. I got that alternative measurements down below. But for the fresh stuff, we're just gonna give it the same treatment we gave the sage. Sage, sage. And then we'll just scoop that up and add it to our bowl. Now next up, we're gonna wanna grate in 2 to 3 cloves of garlic. I would really recommend you grate these in with a microplane versus chopping it up by hand, simply because you want it to be really, really, really fine and well mixed up and incorporated, rather than having large chunks of garlic. Ooh, that was a lot louder than I thought it was gonna be. My apologies. Now from here it gets super easy. 1/2 teaspoon of smoked paprika, 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper. This is just gonna give it like a little bit of a heat, but nothing like, not spicy, just like a little, ooh, you know. 2 teaspoons of fennel seeds. And if you wanna be really extra about it, you can go ahead and just crush those up. Works really well. About 1/4 teaspoon of freshly grated nutmeg, 2 teaspoons of salt, 1 teaspoon of black pepper, 2 tablespoons of maple syrup, which is gonna give us that like traditional diner sausage taste. And then about 1 teaspoon of apple cider vinegar, which I know sounds really weird, but just trust me, okay? Have I ever steered you wrong? Actually, don't answer that. There's a solid chance I have, but trust me now. Now from here, you can mix everything with a spoon or a large spatula, but gonna recommend you use your hand because you do wanna get everything kind of nice and incorporated, and you don't wanna have to over mix it. So I like to do it by hand so you can kind of give it a good squeeze and get everything nice and mixed without having to work the life out of it to get everything mixed. But if you have a sensory thing, then totally understand, just use a spoon or a spatula. Now once it's fully mixed, we're gonna go ahead and plop this into the fridge for at least 30 minutes, just to let all those flavors come together, because they need to come together. And while this is in the fridge, I would like to encourage you to like, comment, subscribe, and maybe share this with someone you care about. All that stuff's free to do, and it helps the channel. And if you did it just now, then I appreciate you. If you did it at any point though, I always still appreciate you. But right now in this moment, it's us, and I appreciate you. And now for our vegetables. We'll start off by cutting up a nice large red bell pepper, cutting off the top and the bottom to expose the inside. Or from, oh, I just bent the tip of my knife. Oh, that hurt me so bad, I heard it. Anyways, we expose the inside so we can go ahead and cut out all the white pithy membrane. I don't know if pith is the right word, but I know membrane is. And we move that to the side. And then from here, we're just gonna go ahead and cut this up into a nice rough dice. It doesn't have to be perfect, just mostly even, so that way it's all relatively cooked in the same amount of time. We are not looking for perfection here, we're just looking for what gets you through the day. What gets a meal on your plate, and fork in your hand, food in your mouth. That's all that matters to me. And don't forget to go back for the butt of your bell pepper, because that's still a very usable piece of bell pepper. We're just gonna go ahead and cut it up and use it as well. Same goes for the top too. You just gotta, thought it was gonna be more dramatic. Pop out the top and give it a nice dice. Then we can go ahead and do the same thing with a green bell pepper. And really these can be any color bell peppers that you want. These are just the ones that I grabbed. If you want to, just grab 2 green bell peppers because those are the cheapest ones. And technically speaking, I don't think they even taste different. I think it's just a visual thing. And don't you forget about that butt and the head. And then last up for part 1 of our vegetables is going to be a nice large yellow onion. We're gonna go ahead and just cut it in half and then give it a nice dice. I almost cut off the root and I did not mean to do that. That would have made a dice much harder. Not impossible, just a pain in the butt. And you know, if you're wondering how to do all these different cuts, then definitely should be subscribed to the channel because go over all these things. We've got a video all about it. You should check it out after this. It's pretty cool. And now that all that first set of vegetables is all chopped up, we're just gonna go ahead and move it to a large bowl. Not to the floor, that's for sure. I'm gonna have to vacuum later. That's fine. And we can move on. Go all the way. Damn it. To our potatoes. Now I will be peeling today's potatoes. You don't have to peel the potatoes, but I like to. But for this case, if you're peeling potatoes, I find it works really well. Do it over the bag that you got your potatoes in because you don't want to run these down your sink because if you do, it'll get stuck and then you'll have to unclog it as a 12-year-old who didn't know any better. But now you're paying the punishment because you clogged up the sink with potato peels, even though no one ever told you don't clog the sink with potato peels. You just thought like, oh, it's a garbage disposal, so you can just put everything down the garbage disposal because it would just like chop it all up, you know, like nom nom nom, but apparently not potato peels. That'll happen to you. Anyways, for your 2 pounds of potatoes, you wanna make sure that you're using Yukon Gold potatoes. And the reason is because if you use russets, they're a little too starchy. And so then when you go to heat these up later on in the week, sometimes they can get a little bit mushy and grainy and sad. And so you don't wanna do that. That's why I like going with something like a Yukon Gold. You don't wanna go as far as like one of those red potatoes because those are a little too dense and then you're just not gonna have a good time. So I think our Yukon Gold's a nice little in-betweener that makes it nice and delicious on day 1 as well as nice and delicious on day 5 because that's really all you're looking for. Now see, watch this. 2 seconds, done. Now from here, we just wanna dice up our potatoes. We wanna keep the dice relatively small, no thicker than like a 1/4 inch or 3/4 inch. Anything thicker than that, you're gonna be chomping down on a big old piece of potato. And in this instance, I'm just gonna say you don't want that. Now to dice these up, I find the best way is to just slice out planks, then slice those planks into matchsticks of equal thickness, and then just give those matchsticks a nice, beautiful, respectable dice. Of all the vegetables that we're cutting up today, this is the one where you definitely want to make sure it's the most uniform, simply because if they aren't uniform, then you're going to end up with some potatoes that are cooked and some that aren't cooked, or some that are cooked and some that are way overcooked. So keeping that uniformity, that, not symbol, symmetris, no, that's not the word. Let's just stick with uniformity, is really, really important. And now that we've cut up all those little itty bitty potatoes, we're just gonna move those to a separate bowl. I don't know why I'm scooping, but I've started and I'm committed to it. Nope, I'm not. I give up. The risk is worth the reward. Oh, baby. Oh, 2 potatoes down. And now we can set both, and now we can just set both of these aside until we cook them. For everything today, we're gonna be using this 12-inch stainless steel skillet, but feel free to use whatever it is that you want, whatever it is that you have, as long as it is big enough to accommodate cooking your pieces. That's all that matters. We're cooking our sausage first, so we're gonna wanna get this up to a medium-high heat. We're gonna wanna sear it and make sure we're really locking in that flavor and all those juices, so that way we end up with nice and delicious plump sausage and not sad, crumbly, dry sausage. Now that our pan is adequately preheated, we're just gonna go ahead and add in a little bit of neutral oil. Nothing too crazy, we just want a little bit to coat the surface so that way nothing sticks, because we already have a ton of fat in the pork, so we don't wanna overdo it. Now we can just dump all of our sausage in, but I'm gonna actually break off chunks of it, so that way we get nice little pieces and kind of hold together and get a better sear than like one thick layer that we then have to break up. This is definitely going to take a couple extra minutes, so if you want to just dump it all in and break it up, totally fine too. I just think this will be a little bit better, and since my wife is going to be eating this all week for breakfast, I want to make sure it's the best it can be. Now I don't want to overcrowd my pan, so I'm going to go ahead and stop about halfway through, and we're just going to have to do this in a couple batches. If you're using stainless steel or cast iron or carbon steel, then as long as it's preheated and you had a nice thin layer of oil on it, everything should just slide around nice and easy, and you shouldn't have to worry about it sticking. Now after about 2 to 3 minutes, the bottom should have a nice amount of color, and now we can just kind of start flipping everything over, tossing it around, and breaking up any of those larger pieces that came down into whatever size you prefer. You didn't see that. And then after another couple minutes, we can go ahead and just toss these around again, making sure we're getting good color and making sure we're getting cooked all the way through. The nice part with these big kind of lumpy pieces is that if you're not sure if it's cooked all the way through, just find the biggest one, chop it in half, and take a look. And now once these are fully cooked, we're gonna go ahead and just remove them into a clean bowl. Don't worry about any of that excess fat because we're not gonna be pouring from this bowl. We're gonna be lifting and removing, so all that fat will just sink to the bottom. And now we can move on to our potatoes. But we're gonna do something different. Now, we could absolutely cook these directly in the pan. There's nothing wrong with that. They're just gonna take a little bit longer than I'd like them to take. So in order to speed things up, we are gonna move these into a microwavable bowl, not this metal one, which I should have started with to begin with, but I didn't think about it. Gonna cover it up with a damp paper towel, and I'm gonna throw it in the microwave for like 5 minutes. How are you? How are things going? What's going on? What are some things we can celebrate about you this week? Any achievements? Anything going rough? You need some support? Let us know. We're here for you. Sweet. All right, these. Oh, that is hot. Oh, that's hot. Didn't expect that. I do hot things, but I wasn't expecting it to be that hot. I don't know if you can see the steam. Do cameras pick up steam? That's a dumb question. Of course they pick up steam. Can you see it on this camera? I'm sorry. Now these potatoes are nice and fully cooked. Our pan is preheated to medium-high heat. We have all that sausage grease from before, and we're just gonna let that crisp up all of our very hot and already cooked potatoes. Give those a nice toss, make sure nothing's sticking together. I'm actually gonna turn my heat up a little bit since I probably should have done this in 2 different batches, but it's fine. Give it a nice pinch of salt. And these are potatoes, so they can take quite a bit of salt, so don't be scared. As well as some fresh cracked black pepper. Now I'm just gonna let this sit for a couple minutes so we can get a nice crisp on the bottom and hopefully it didn't stick, but it's entirely possible that it did, but we'll see. All right, moment of truth. I think they stuck. I knew it. I had a feeling they were gonna stick. It's okay. Don't be like me. They stuck because I overcrowded my pan and it dropped the temperature of my pan, although it's not too bad. It could be worse. They're still gonna be very delicious. Since these are already cooked and we're really just looking to get some color on them, in my case, I've got some color on them and I'm not really gonna get much more simply because I let them stick to the bottom of the pan. My fault, but that's okay. I'm gonna go ahead and move these back into the bowl. And now we can cook our vegetables. However, I am going to replace my pan because this one got all stucky. It's my fault, it happens. Need to let this one preheat back up to medium high. And now that we are preheated, I'm gonna go ahead and just add in a nice thin layer of neutral oil just to prevent stickage. And then from here, we can go ahead and add in all of our veggies. We're gonna add a little pinch of salt here. And then we're really just gonna keep these kind of moving, tossing around for about 5 minutes because we don't want them to be fully soft because they're gonna sit and soften and soak up juices and things like that. We want them to still have a little bit of bite so that way when we microwave them, they still have a good texture and they're not soggy and sad. I feel like I refer to things as being sad a lot, and I'm not sure if that's a good or bad thing. So someone let me know if I do it too much and I'll tone it down a little bit. Sometimes you just need an outside friend to let you know. Now it's been about 5 minutes and as you can see, our onions are starting to get real translucent here. We still have a good amount of bite, but we've got a little bit of char and it's a little bit soft and it's a little bit lovely. It's gonna be a lot of bit delicious. The last thing we're gonna do is add in a couple of handfuls of spinach. In my case, pre-washed baby spinach because I didn't want to deal with washing it myself. I feel like 2 to 3 cups worth or 2-ish handfuls, followed by about a teaspoon of lemon juice. This is just gonna help keep it nice and fresh and bright because we do have a lot of heavy, rich deliciousness in this. Now this won't take very long because spinach cooks extremely fast and we don't want it to be sad. There I go again with the sad. I should also mention the lemon juice helps to keep our spinach tasting nice and fresh versus kind of bland. After about 30 seconds of cooking that spinach, we can go ahead and remove all of it back into the bowl. Make sure you scrape everything out because you paid for everything, so don't waste any of it. And now we can just assemble all of our bowls and I'll show you how to finish them the morning of. Starting off with a microwavable container, we'll start with a layer of our potatoes, followed by our sausage, and we'll top it with our veggies. Now it's really important that when you're building this bowl that you put those potatoes at the bottom because those potatoes are gonna absorb all that grease from that sausage as it sits in the fridge, and you wanna make sure you put the vegetables at the top so that way they don't sit at the bottom bottom and get too soggy. If you build it this way, it'll be just as delicious on day 5 as it is on day 1. Now when you're ready to eat this, all you have to do is open it up, crack in 2 eggs, add about a tablespoon of water just to help it steam, a small pinch of salt, and then making sure to break those yolks, we'll go ahead and give it a nice little bit of a mix. Then we can cover it with a paper towel and microwave it for 1 minute. Then after that minute, we'll go ahead and give it another stir, then cover it and place it back in the microwave for another 30 to 60 seconds, depending on how you like your eggs. And after that, you'll be left with a delicious little breakfast scramble. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed it, and I really hope that you learned something. Here's a photo of my wife looking very happy after I made her one of her pregnancy cravings, and I'll see you next week.